Hello, I'm Karen Elgersma at Victoria IMAX at the Royal BC Museum, and you're watching Go Island on ShawTV. On today's show, Dan Kahn talks to a family whose little boy has faced more challenges in the past 2 years than most people face in a lifetime. And we visit Canada's oldest synagogue. All that and so much more on Go Island. Hello, I'm Karen Elgersma, and welcome to a very special edition of Go Island. It's special for me because I am honored and privileged, and so are you, to be in the presence of a very talented, very creative director, writer, producer of the National Geographic IMAX film, Jerusalem. It's just such an honor to meet you. I think this production is brilliant. I think it's genius. There's so many levels to it. I can't wait for all of you to get a glimpse of it. You're going to have to come down to the Royal BC Museum and check it out yourself. But let's begin with the concept for Jerusalem. Who came up with the vision to create it, and to create it particularly with the theme, the idea that you're focusing on the three different religions?
Well, I think that people have seen a lot of films on Jerusalem in television and so forth, so we had to do something totally different. First of all, designed for the IMAX screen so you get to experience it. You get to go to the Holy Land. But there has to be heart in the movie as well. So I think the first challenge, and we began, I should say this is a 5-year journey for us. So the idea was brought to me by my fellow producer, Taryn Davis, and we did a film on Mecca together, on the pilgrimage to Mecca. And people came up to us after that film, which was an IMAX film, and they said, I had no idea. And it just kind of showed us there was this tremendous appetite for learning about culture and history and people in this part of the world. And everyone said, next stop, Jerusalem. The three Abrahamic faiths, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam in Jerusalem.
The history of Jerusalem is really the history of the world. It's a tiny city that's sacred to over half of the world's population.
So tell us how you told the story of Jerusalem.
A lot of people see it through the lens of the conflict, of politics, and they tend to get turned off. And so what we wanted to do was find people who live in the city and who can speak to their experience. What is it like to grow up there and go to school there and to love the city? And so very quickly we actually put out a casting call. We wanted to tell the story of the city through different perspectives. What is it like to be a Jew, a Christian, a Muslim? And we have a fourth voice too, which is a secular voice. So if you're not religious, what does it mean for you? And we wanted young people in the film, because I don't think we hear from young people. It turned out that we cast these three beautiful young women aged 15 to 18, but that wasn't the intent to begin with. Nothing against boys. So it just happened to be that the three young people were women. They were charismatic and enthusiastic, and they could speak about their culture, their families. Some of their families go back hundreds of years in Jerusalem, and we used to joke that it was called Jerusalem Idol, you know, because we had this, in a sense, I interviewed hundreds of Jews and hundreds of Christians and Muslims, and they were phenomenally talented. It actually gave me great hope for the next generation.
Yeah,
and that's
for sure.
something that's rare, sometimes difficult to come by in that part of the world, because as you say, we're always fed conflict, and we tend to just see the negative in this part of the world, and there's so much beyond that. This is a city that goes back 5,000 years. Yeah. It's so rich artistically, archaeologically, and so forth. So what's the personal connection? So yeah, we decided to follow these three young women. I actually interviewed them, and I said, take me on a one-day tour of your Jerusalem.
Wow.
Pretend I knew nothing about the city. And you know what? They took me to almost the same places, but from totally different perspectives. So that was the story.
Jerusalem to me is more than just a city. It's beauty, it's spirit, and it's also my religion. But most importantly, it's my family. My family have been here for hundreds of years, the first settlers in our village, and we just feel attached to Jerusalem.
That was a little snippet from the National Geographic IMAX movie, Jerusalem. Brilliant, brilliant movie. Come down to the Royal BC Museum and check it out. It is such an inspiring, artistic, beautiful piece of work. Now, speaking of inspiring, Dan Kahn met a family whose 2-year-old son has faced more drama in the last couple of years than most of us have faced in a lifetime. but the family is dealing with it with such courage. Dan Kahn with that story.
Jerusalem is amazing in that there are over 2,000 archaeological sites in the city.
What did you learn from this experience?
Well, certainly to not be the writer, director, producer ever again. But no, I mean, Jerusalem is a mammoth subject. And I'll be honest with you, I wasn't sure if I wanted to do the film at first. I sort of had what I would call Israel-Palestine fatigue. And that's only because my perception of Jerusalem was based on what we see in the media.
Sure.
And so I studied comparative religions. So I had that background. I thought I knew a little bit about Jerusalem, but I knew nothing. So I actually insisted that I get 3 months of time just to read about Jerusalem before setting foot in the city. And when I did, I was totally blown away. I was foolish because I set up about 5 interviews a day with people who have incredible, the Muslim family that has had the keys to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre for 1,400 years, and these incredible stories. And so by the end of the first week, my head was exploding. And that's Jerusalem. You know, by the end of the first week, you sort of say, okay, I get it. And then the end of the second week, you know nothing. You're further away from the truth. But I love that. Every stone in Jerusalem has hundreds of stories, depending on who you talk to. And I think, for me, that's what's interesting about these young women, is that they might disagree about each other's stories for each stone, but that's okay. And I think it would be nice to think that we can come to a point where it's okay to disagree about your narrative, but at least respect it.
I feel very connected to this city. Maybe because it's beauty, maybe because it's history, and maybe because it's my home.
Jerusalem at the IMAX Victoria, right here at the Royal BC Museum. Make sure you take the time to take your friends and family and enjoy this movie. See it twice. Now, because we have the opportunity to interview the brilliant director, writer, producer, Daniel Ferguson, I decided to take a story that we shot about 1.5 years ago, focusing on the oldest synagogue in Canada that happens to be right here in Victoria. Just seeing Jen on the screen makes me want to hug her. We miss her so much, but thankfully, she is still with the ShawTV family. She is working as a video journalist over in Vancouver. Now, we have to take a very short break, but go nowhere, because we are continuing our interview with the brilliant and talented Daniel Ferguson, the writer, producer, and director of the IMAX film Jerusalem. It is so amazing. You have to check it out. And we're also going to give you a few paddleboarding lessons. I have never tried paddleboarding, but it's definitely on my bucket list. The other thing that's on my bucket list is taking everybody I know down to Victoria IMAX to see Jerusalem. It is a brilliant, breathtaking production. Daniel Ferguson, what a brilliant writer, producer, director of this movie. Make sure you get your tickets. We have to take a very short break, but go nowhere. We're going to continue our interview with Daniel. And we are also going to give you some tips from our very own Dunya in Vancouver on our Go Higher segment. How were you able to get some of the panoramic shots and some of the footage that you got?
Thousands of cups of tea is the short answer, really. It takes diplomacy and it takes trust. We were one of the only Western crews ever to film inside the Dome of the Rock and inside Al-Aqsa Mosque, underneath the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which is where many Christians believe that Jesus was crucified and buried. And these are not areas that the public can just walk into. So, and the aerials, my goodness, 25 years, no one's done aerials over Jerusalem at that altitude. And it took us about a year, but we pulled it off. When the mayor saw the script, the mayor of Jerusalem said, yeah, good luck, guys. And he sort of threw it back in our faces and laughed and said, you won't get 50% of what's on the page. And after several years and banging our heads against many walls, we got it all.
The Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, the adhan, and you hear many stuff, many kinds of prayers. And when they mix together, this is where I get inspired.
Thank you for taking the time to sit down and give us such a brilliant interview, Daniel Ferguson, the writer, director, and producer of Jerusalem here at Victoria IMAX at the Royal BC Museum. Make sure you get your tickets, bring your friends, bring your family, and take the time to go out for a cup of coffee after and discuss this brilliant thought-provoking film. We will see you next time on Go Island.
Women's clothing provided by Tulip Noir, casual designer fashions. Men's wardrobe by DG Bremner & Co. Menswear and accessories. Hair services provided by Salon J.